Man, aren't we just off to the most fantastic start in 2024? You know, we have fantastic jobs numbers that came in January, breaking expectations, especially all the really crappy jobs that nobody wants, all the part-time ones that don't pay enough to feed your family. Yeah, those jobs, those are doing great. And also, on top of that, we've had so many different companies performing layoffs at the beginning of this year, and that's great too, isn't it? That's great news, guys. Well, at least that's what the current administration and the Fed would want you to believe. Because this year in 2024, there are dozens of major companies that are going to be cutting costs, which means cutting your job and paying less. That's basically what all this means, guys. When companies hunker down into cost-cutting mode, it means that there are going to be layoffs and they're just going to be spending less money. And layoffs are one of the easiest ways to cut costs. And the funny thing is that, on a side note here, is the more that companies perform layoffs and cut costs, then the higher their stock prices go, which is even more irony because when people see the stock market going higher and higher like we have been now, a lot of people use that as like reinforcement to believe that the economy is going extremely well, when in fact it isn't. In fact, I just heard George Gammon say on his channel yesterday, and I just love this, guys, because it's so true, that all these other economies, the big major players in the world that just entered a recession, like the UK, Germany, Japan, all of those countries, guess what? They all have all-time high stock markets right now, just like the US, but yet they're announcing that they're in recession. So to sit there and say that it's impossible to have a recession even though we have all-time highs in the stock market is actually just not true, because these other countries are proving that right now. And you know, here's the big problem, guys. It's not even just companies that are hurting right now that are looking to cut costs. Even profitable companies are doing this right now. You have companies like Mattel, PayPal, Cisco, Nike, Estee Lauder, and Levi Strauss are all putting forth cost-cutting measures this year, even though they're doing well financially. I wonder why they're doing that. My guess is they're probably hunkering down in anticipation of the economy continuing to falter and get worse. Why else would companies that are doing well right now be pulling back rather than trying to expand? Really, what's the other excuse? One of the most recent examples we can see this with is UPS. They just announced that they're going to be laying off like 12,000 workers this year because of their new contracts and how much their expenses are going up. It's like, yeah, you guys are going to get your new contracts. The people working there are going to get paid more, but it's just there's going to be way less of you working there who are getting paid more, which I just find fascinating because a lot of people associate higher wages with a prospering economy, and this is going to, you know, make our economy even better, just like with the fast food that we've talked about. You know, in California, they're making it so that fast food workers are now going to have to get $20 an hour starting in April of this year. And a lot of people have written me saying, oh, Michael, what are you against fast food workers making $20 an hour? No, I'm not. But what I am against is a Big Mac costing $18, right? So that's what the problem is. And unfortunately, that's the direction that we're going to be headed, just like UPS, guys. UPS, okay, we're going to pay you more, but we're just going to get rid of a ton of people. So all those 12,000 workers with UPS who are going to lose their jobs are now going to have no job, and whatever job they get next, chances are is probably not going to be paying them as good as UPS would have if they were still on the payroll. Here we have a house for $1.4 million that says it's sold, but that's kind of a lie because it's still pending and it's supposed to close by March 1st. But anyways, they sold it pretty fast because they listed it back in October for this price and never reduced the price, not even one time, and have sold the property, probably because it was priced properly. But this house is a teardown, folks, and really somebody's paying $1.4 million for just this piece of land that's on the water. Previous owner's property tax bill is a little over $18,000 a year. The new owner's property tax bill is probably going to be over $30,000 a year. You also have banks, which banks we know are in trouble right now because of the interest rate situation. You have a ton of banks nationwide right now that are reducing their workforce, which means layoffs, in anticipation of having these interest rates higher for longer, because they know that's going to end up bleeding them dry, and we're going to see more bank failures from this. And there is a huge list of major companies right now that have announced some sort of cost-cutting measure, including layoffs, guys. And I'm not going to read them all because it's too many to read here, but I will flash them up on the screen so you guys can see them, and I'll just read a few of them. You know, you have PayPal, Macy's, JetBlue, UPS, Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, Disney, Warner Brothers, Comcast, Delta Airlines, Ford Motors, Stellantis, Chipotle, Wells Fargo, Walmart, Target. The list goes on. And these companies aren't playing games. In fact, they're trying to save billions of dollars, okay? You have companies that are doing this like Warner Brothers and Disney and Discovery. They're aiming for $7.5 billion in savings. So I wonder how much people's pay is gonna have to go down and how many people they're gonna have to lay off in order to achieve that goal. My guess is it's going to be a lot, but don't worry guys, this is going to be the strongest year that our economy has ever seen. You have all these automakers struggling because their EV sales are way off and they're losing money on the sales of these cars. And the reality is many of these companies are just not doing as good either because of inflation, guys. Inflation has eaten away such a high chunk of people's income that there's just not a whole lot left over these days for consumers to be out spending on things they don't actually need. You know, the needs are surpassing the wants majorly right now, and companies that don't provide something that people actually need are being squeezed financially. And it's not really a big surprise that people are broke and people are in financial trouble. We talk about this all the time here on the channel, but there was a new survey that came out recently about how 80% of people regret some of their financial choices in life. That's a lot, guys. That's almost everyone. One of the biggest regrets that a lot of people have financially is not maintaining an emergency fund. I've talked about this here numerous times on the channel that you need to have one. And you know why that's one of the biggest regrets recently? Because of all the layoffs. So now that people are starting to lose their job, not having that emergency fund is putting them in a huge financial bind. This survey also revealed that 48% of Americans, which is basically half, do not have enough money to last even 3 months if they were to lose their source of income. So that's it, guys. Like, you know, you lose your job and in less than 90 days, you're completely bankrupt. That's not a good financial position to be in. And that definitely doesn't constitute having an emergency fund. So right off the bat, if people's biggest regret is that they don't have an emergency fund, they can't afford their life for more than a few months without their job, what do you think people should be doing right now instead of getting into record amounts of credit card debt? Like I've been saying here on the channel, you should be saving and preparing for you to lose your job, because you don't know when or if that's going to happen. And if it does, you'll be prepared. And if it doesn't, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to be better off financially. You're going to be richer. So there's no downside to preparing for this. But there were two things particularly in this survey that were revealed that many people know that they need to do, but they don't. And those two things are living below your means and saving for retirement. That's financial advice that pretty much everyone has heard from somewhere at this point in their life, but hardly anyone follows anymore. And that's reflected in the most recent consumer data that we see, where people are YOLOing their savings into risky investments and doom spending their way into debt forever, guys. Like, this is the complete opposite direction that people are going right now. They hear this advice and they know it's the right thing to do, but they do the exact opposite right now. 85% of people in this survey say that it's very important to maintain a high credit score, but 85% of people do not have great credit. So even though people know what the right things are to do, they continually don't follow them, essentially, is what all this survey data is revealing. People know what they should be doing, but they do the opposite. Here we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath rental for $2,800 a month, and mind you, it's not on the beach or anything like that, and it's $2,800 a month. And this history chart here just shows you how much things have climbed, at least since 2021. I mean, they were renting these places for $2,200, $2,500 just back in 2021. Now some of them are renting for as much as $3,000. It is insanity, guys. You used to be able to rent a nice place on the beach for that price, like oceanfront. Property tax bill here, $15,000 a year. Here's another interesting part of this survey. 75% of Americans say that owning a home is a great way to build your net worth. This survey data just completely contradicts what people actually do. 69% of people say buying a fixer-upper is a smart financial decision. Okay, well, most people, they want a move-in ready house. 68% say that putting a large down payment is better than taking a large mortgage. Pretty much everybody does the opposite. They put down the minimum they possibly can and take on the largest amount of mortgage that they possibly can. 64% of Americans say that they need to pay off the mortgage as quickly as possible to get out of debt, yet basically everybody continues to refinance their house every 5 to 10 years to pull the most equity out of it as possible, or get a home equity line of credit to keep the crazy lifestyle going. So I don't see how owning a home for all these people is going to be a good source of net worth in the future if all they're doing is borrowing to the hilt against that asset and basically continuing to increase their monthly payment while pushing themselves further and further into debt, because that's what most people seem to be doing right now. It's not enough to just talk the talk, guys. You have to walk the walk. Knowing what the right thing to do is and actually doing it are two very different things. And you know what? As if this isn't bad enough, and if the world's not twisted enough already as it is with everything that's going on right now, I just saw this story about how more and more private equity firms have their eye now on the child care industry. Okay? Think about all the things that private equity has ruined recently, namely housing being the biggest and most relevant one to my channel and what we talk about here. You have these countless number of hedge funds that own a ton of real estate now and have gotten into the landlord business. And what exactly has that done for you and I as the consumer? Has that made housing a better product? Has it made it cheaper? Absolutely not. It's actually done the opposite on both fronts, right? Well, now they want to watch your kids and get on that too, guys. So pay attention to this. Last year, there was a law passed in Vermont that basically invests $125 million a year into its child care system. And what it does is it expands eligibility for state assistance. Now about 7,000 new families are expected to receive money for child care expenses. In a nutshell, the government in Vermont is giving people free money to pay for child care because it's gotten so expensive. But also, there's going to be funding available to help pay daycare centers recruit and retain teachers and expand their capacity. And the centers will also receive additional money for providing non-standard hours of care. And this has already been happening in different parts of the country, so they've already been slowly creeping into this business, guys. In fact, KinderCare, Learning Care Group, and the Goddard School, and Primrose School, and Bright Horizons are all controlled by private equity funds right now. They represent about 10 to 12% of the marketplace. Well, now it's going to continue expanding thanks to programs like this. And basically their goal, like with anything else, is to turn the maximum profit. Basically what they do is they buy a business with the intention of flipping it for a profit, and also they try to maximize the value in the short term, and basically they invest less money in staff or facilities. And the next thing they do is they load up businesses with a bunch of debt and extract a bunch of fees. And because of the way these businesses are structured, it insulates them from liability. So they basically control these child care places, and obviously the fees and the rates are going to get jacked up for you who are using this. And once again, the consumer gets screwed and these big private equity firms get richer, guys. They've also been doing this with nursing homes for years. And so why this is important is because if your kid gets hurt in one of these child cares, for example, or even goes missing, or something really bad happens to them, something even worse, if these private equity firms have their ducks in a row and have the business structured properly, then families have little or no recourse should they encounter a serious problem. Just like with the nursing homes. If you have an elderly person in a nursing home that's owned by a private equity firm and something happens to them there, they're basically going to be immune from lawsuits, guys. Why is this not illegal again? That's what I'm asking myself right now. The government's more concerned if illegal immigrants are coming in here and have money on their debit card to go to the store and buy things. They don't seem to be concerned about people's children in daycares or the elderly getting taken advantage of at these nursing homes. Now, the most recent Fed meeting minutes came out this week, and it reveals that they're still pretty concerned about this economy. They said in here that asset valuations across multiple markets appeared high relative to fundamentals. Like, what have we been saying here on the channel for years now? That the price of real estate, the price of these stocks, the price of anything of value right now is artificially inflated due to inflation and due to all the money that was printed. Now, according to the Fed's meeting minutes, they know that prices for multifamily and commercial real estate and offices are going to continue on the decline. They're aware of this. But now they're taking a look at the leverage in the financial system right now, and they're looking at the fact that, hey, there's still a lot of banks out there that have high levels of uninsured deposits and are sitting on unrealized losses in their portfolios due to higher interest rates. Just like we were talking about earlier, many of these banks are already closing branches, they're already laying people off, and the Fed is well aware of the weakness in the banking system right now. They're talking about how there's mounting pressure on low and middle income households based on their increasing reliance on credit cards and buy now, pay later services. And they're well aware that people have stopped saving and are taking on more debt just to make ends meet right now. So I don't understand why anybody would think that there's going to be a rate cut coming in the near future, since they know this, guys. They know this is the situation right now. But I'm perfectly happy in this high interest rate environment, just collecting interest on my money being saved and not having to take any risk right now. I'll take that. I'm going to go with the side of history on this one, that when they finally do start cutting rates, it's going to be because things are probably not so good, and that's really going to be the start of this big show. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.